Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday morning Dew edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobula. Your mic is muted. I forgot to text you your reminder.
You know, whenever you do that, I'm like, I don't know why he does that. He doesn't need to do that, but I guess you do.
And then, I don't know why he does that. It's just every time he doesn't, I forget to turn my mic on.
Yeah.
There's that. Hey, how's everybody doing this morning? Lovely Thursday morning, 9 a.m. here on the East Coast. Up very early with us, crowd filing in here, 324 in the YouTube chat, 282 filing in on Rumble. Let's smash that like button and wake everybody up this morning. I had something I wanted to mention, but I forgot what it was. Hey, Sunday is my birthday stream. It actually falls on my birthday this year.
Really?
So yeah, we're actually doing a live stream.
Why did I not know that?
Yep.
I gotta put your damn birthday in a calendar.
There you go. Well, yeah, I turn 38 on Sunday, and so that'll be a fun birthday show. But until then, this is the last you'll see from us. So we did record a, not a brief interview, but I would say a mid-length interview with Omali Yeshitela yesterday, which we'll be showing you guys a little later in the show. I watched Jimmy's interview with Omali last night. It was very good. And I think our questions...
Oh, he had him on?
Yeah, he had him on last night. So, the interview just...
very cool.
Yeah. They're similar in ways, obviously, but we cover a little bit of different ground as well. So looking forward to showing you guys that. It was a pleasure being joined by Omali once more before the sentencing hearing, which we'll have more details on, obviously, when we show you guys that interview in a few minutes. We will be switching to Rumble for the final two segments of the show. Nothing too crazy, just showing some CBS footage. CBS are notorious copyright Nazis, so we will head over to Rumble for that and one other piece. We have a Syria piece that we're going to do over there as well. So that'll be in a couple hours, but we still got plenty of stuff to get into between now and then. We got a couple of... shall we say, regional stories to start the day. We got a New Jersey story and then a New York story. But let's get started with the New Jersey story. So this was one of the weirder stories of the year. New Jersey resident tried to fly his own drone at one of the drones hanging out over the Picatinny Arsenal Army base. So you guys have heard about these drones flying over New Jersey. They have been spotted multiple times by multiple residents, and this is becoming quite the bizarre story. So here's a local news report on this event.
In New Jersey lately, mysterious drones flying above multiple counties, and no one really seems to know exactly what's going on.
So this has caught the attention of many. Fox 5's Ritchie Torres takes a look at the latest sightings in the sky.
These are all drones in the sky.
It may look like videos from the TV series The Unexplained, what appears to be mystery drones flying over some New Jersey communities.
I can see 3 drones.
From down at the shore all the way to the Army facility in Morris County.
They just hover. A little bit over there, a little bit over there, a little bit, but they just hover back and forth.
Wharton, New Jersey resident and Terror Talk podcast host Michael B. has spent the past 2 weeks attempting to see what these peculiar-looking light-up moving dots are in the sky with a drone of his own. But so far, he hasn't had any luck.
The other night, there was, right here over Picatinny, there was a drone just hanging out. I put my drone up in the air and went towards it. I had full battery life. Not 3 minutes into the flight, I lost control of the drone. Warning on my screen, lost control, and my drone started going down, dead battery.
Michael lives less than a quarter mile from the Picatinny Arsenal Army base, and it has been there over the past few weeks where the military says they have spotted at least 11 unauthorized drones.
Weird, wild stuff. It's very strange. My first thought was they're dropping off Michael Tracy's Amazon Prime holiday gift shipments, but I don't think he's that much of a consumerist to be ordering that many. There seem to be quite a few of these things. So the AP reports yesterday, Homeland Security shares new details of mysterious drone flights over New Jersey. The large mysterious drones reported flying over parts of New Jersey in recent weeks appear to avoid detection by traditional methods, such as helicopter and radio, according to a state lawmaker briefed Wednesday by the Department of Homeland Security. In a post on the social media platform X, Assemblywoman Dawn Fantasia described the drones as up to 6 feet in diameter and sometimes traveling with their lights switched off. I gotta say, Dawn Fantasia, that's a hell of a name for an elected, you wouldn't think those names, quite match. That is a interesting career for a Dawn Fantasia.
Well, that's how she got into politics. She met a few people working the poll.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I guess it is all prostitution all the time.
Honey, you got a great personality.
Yeah, right, exactly. You should try running for office in New Jersey, especially. I mean, that's no offense to our New Jersey friends, but standards there a bit lower.
They met her at the Bada Bing.
Yeah, at the Bada Bing. At the Bada Bing. That's right. The Morris County Republican was among several state and local lawmakers who met with state police and Homeland Security officials to discuss the spat of sightings that range from the New York City area through New Jersey and westward into parts of Pennsylvania, including over Philadelphia. The devices do not appear to be flown by hobbyists, Fantasia wrote. The number of sightings has increased in recent days, though officials say many of the objects seen may have been planes rather than drones. It's also possible that a single drone has been reported more than once. Yeah, there were some videos that you'll see on Twitter of, aircraft that are pretty clearly planes, because some people are just, pointing their cameras at the sky and, finding themselves suspicious of anything. But there are enough of them that are hovering and maneuvering weirdly enough where you could say they're definitely not planes. They definitely are drones up there. Mm-hmm. Governor Phil Murphy and law enforcement officials have stressed that the drones don't appear to threaten public safety. The FBI has been investigating and has asked residents to share any videos, photos, or other information they may have. Two Republican Jersey Shore area congressmen, U.S. Representatives Chris Smith and Jeff Van Drew — Jeff Van Drew was a former Democrat, by the way, so he's the one who Dem exited, he switched — have called on the military to shoot down the drones. Okay, so this is some weird shit. Okay, so Van Drew appeared on Fox News and freaked out the host, as you could see from her facial expression here, and you'll see it in this video. And he tweets out, "What we've uncovered is alarming. Drones flying in from the direction of the ocean, possibly linked to a missing Iranian mothership." That's right. So this is some weird, wild stuff here.
It's the real deal, Harris. I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off. I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America.
Oh,
They've launched drones. It's everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable.
Yes, our government always lets us
technology.
know.
Yeah.
But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are.
Okay, now we'll
You're
pause
such
for
a
second.
fantastic moron.
Yeah. As we'll see, I don't want to give away too much, but the Pentagon seems to have refuted his, I won't even say theory, his assertion that, very credible people are saying this is an Iranian mothership. Russ and I had the same joke in mind.
There is place in Patterson make meatball sub that you would turn your back on Allah for.
Ayatollah sends me for the gabagool. That's it. Like, remember Silvio's line at the beginning of The Sopranos, episode 1? I forget his wife's name. She sends me for the gabagool. And
where is Satrialis?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they sent a mothership to hover over New Jersey. Yeah, they would show their hand in that way. That's what they were going to do. If they were going to attack the United States, let's not attack right away. Let's first send our drone mothership over to New Jersey to alert Fox News to this, because that won't blow our cover at all. So this is quite the theory. And again, I can't call it a theory because he's claiming that very high up people are telling him this, which does not seem to be the case according to the Pentagon, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But he goes on.
Not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Look, you've given us some pretty dire information just here, and I want to make sure that our viewers are
Here they go.
Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home. Also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen.
You can put MAGA into Fox News, but ultimately you can't take Murdoch out of Fox News. Like, this shit about, we're isolationists, no more endless war. They just cannot resist the opportunity to fearmonger about Iran. And why? Because as we saw in our clip last week that we showed on one of the last couple shows we did, Wesley Clark, days and weeks after 9/11, was alerted to the fact that the government has plans to topple 7 countries after 9/11. So far, they've done every single one except Iran. And so this is clearly the plan. And they just cannot resist on Fox News. And, CNN's really no different in this aspect. But they cannot resist. Oh, wow, there's an Iranian mothership flying over Bedminster. What a threat this is. We have to shoot them down. Yeah, they salivate over it.
It really demonstrates how propagandized and indoctrinated Americans are. We did that segment about Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, the other day, and we broke down the military bases. The U.S. has at least 742 military bases around the world in 80 countries. And here we go on TV like this is, oh my God, some foreign actor is in our airspace. We're in everybody's airspace.
Right.
Russia has 49 bases and it was something like 27 countries. China has 29 and 3.
Right.
The idea that the American people, and they're really indoctrinated with this notion that we're in danger from them.
Right.
Not that we are terrorizing the rest of the world, because America is in this spot where it has very typical imperial ambitions, dominate the world, rob it of its resources, steal their riches. But because we're ostensibly this human rights democracy, we can't phrase it that way. That's part of what puts a bug up their ass about Trump, because Trump will go up there and say, yeah, we need the oil.
Yeah, we're going to take the oil. Yeah.
You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say Assad was a brutal dictator. Don't look at all the brutal dictators that we're allied with, that we've supported, that we've propped up, that we've installed, knocking out socialist governments and unfriendly governments. Forget about that. Assad was a brutal dictator. They have to frame it that way, because we can't do the Roman thing. To Germania! We can't do that. It doesn't. We're democracy that believes in human rights. So you have to frame everything to Americans as we live in a dangerous world full of irrational, hostile actors that we have to project power in order to defend ourselves against. Otherwise, you're inviting them to come attack us as if they would ever.
Right, exactly. And when in reality, this is more likely Joe Colombo's grandson looking for the corpse of Jimmy Hoffa than it is the Iranian government's mothership. All right, here we go.
That capability exists. It's possible some of those drones are here. So I have two questions. How are they fueling them? They have to land somewhere. Drones don't fly forever. Why don't they close down the airspace? Yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's the holidays. Shut it down. But if you start shooting things and you don't know how they're fueled, that's going to be mass explosions. This isn't like one spy balloon.
Yeah, that sounds like a very bad idea.
We're all in terrible danger.
Yeah.
We've got to bring them down, and we've got to find a way to bring them down. I don't know exactly where they're landing. Obviously, I have some information. And again, this isn't just Jeff Van Drew. Oh, let's get on Harris Faulkner's show and say something outrageous. I'm telling you.
That sounds like exactly what it is. That sounds like exactly what it is. This is Jeff Van Drew saying, let's get on Harris Faulkner's show and say something completely outrageous. It's funny how you put that disclaimer. The lady doth protest too much there, because it seems like that's exactly what you're doing. This isn't me coming on TV and pulling something out of my ass to try and scare people. No, that's not what this is. Even though it sure seems like that's exactly what this is. Yes.
Deal from very high positioned individuals who are telling me this. And the bottom line is they're launching them. They are across the country. We don't even have anything like this.
No.
Our government and also certainly our hobbyists don't. So think about it. It's not only do I have the information, but it's also common sense. We've got to get them down. We've got to determine how they function, what they do, make sure that we can get them, and you're right, in a safe way. When I say shoot them down, get them down any way that you can, but right now they're probably extracting information. This is a clear and present danger to the United States and to our president-elect, and it's a serious business.
All right. Wow. That is some crazy bullshit. In a letter, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin Smith, which is the other congressman who wasn't on TV, called for military help dealing with the drones, noting that Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst has the capability to identify and take down unauthorized unmanned aerial systems. However, Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh told reporters Wednesday that our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary. So here is the Pentagon pouring some cold water on Jeff Van Drew's fear-mongering there.
Jen. Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
There you go.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Okay, so where the hell did he get that from? Because not only did he come up, like, he didn't just come up there and float that. He came up there and said, I have credible people telling me that. And here the Pentagon comes out and says, no.
You got a couple guys at the Defense Department. Yo, it's Van Drew. It's Van Drew. Right. Tell him there's an Iranian mothership off the coast of America. I think that's probably the genesis of this.
Yeah, it
somebody
could be.
Somebody was playing a prank on the dumbest member of Congress.
It could be
and that's saying
prank.
something.
Yes, indeed. Republican Assemblyman Eric Peterson, whose district includes parts of the state where the drones have been reported, said he also attended Wednesday's meeting at a state facility in West Trenton. The session lasted for about 90 minutes. Peterson said DHS officials were generous with their time, but appeared dismissive of some concerns, saying not all the sightings reported have been confirmed to involve drones. So who or what is behind the flying objects? Where are they coming from? What are they doing? My understanding is they have no clue, Peterson said. A message seeking comment was left with the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so this is another funny little video. Apparently a Fox News host lives in New Jersey, and she recorded some footage of the drones. This is one of the morning people, and she reported her findings on her show the next day.
Duffy captured this video of drones. This is in her own backyard, and she joins us now. Rachel, y'all been seeing these. You were saying prayers with your kids, and they look
I saw it out the window, but that footage was actually captured while I was at
You were home saying prayers, reading A Night Before Christmas to troll the Democrats, and then you heard a drone flying over your house, and you said, "Oh, let's take a break."
the Patriot Awards, and my
I
kids were home.
I thought it was going to be one of those abduction things, which is good because I had my suppository already in.
Yeah, right, exactly, yes.
And they saw it, they ran outside, and they captured that video.
So it's been more than once you've seen
Oh, multiple times. This is all everyone is talking about. If you live in Morristown, Mendham, Summit, Bedminster, that whole Far Hills, that whole area, that's all you talk about. Go to the neighborhood, apps, where, you put in if you lost your dog or your cat. They're all about drone sightings now. Right. And so I think what you're seeing is, first of all, no answers. Whatever the governor put out was a non-answer. It didn't make me feel any better. And I just think we're in this era. You remember when I had my interview with Donald Trump at Bedminster? I'm like,
the New Jersey devil has returned. And he's stealing our children.
Yeah.
Hey, will you declassify Epstein? Will you declassify the 9/11? And he was like, yes. I think we're in this era where people want more transparency from government, and they are so tired of the lies being told to them by the government. And I think that's what you're seeing right here. People are outraged. 3 weeks, no answer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we were interviewing those mayors, that's what they said. They're not satisfied with just being told, well, you're safe, everything's fine. We want to know why, who's manning these, where are they from? Are they from another country? Because they told us the spy balloon is going through, and they allowed it to travel throughout our whole country before they actually took it down.
And then we found out they knew it was traveling over the country, that a Chinese spy balloon was going over our country, and Joe Biden's government was okay with it. Yeah. Now, another interesting little tidbit before we move on to the second topic, Ainsley, is people think I know something because Sean is up for the transportation secretary. I'm I don't know anything. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just as curious as everybody else, and I don't feel good. They're flying low. I mean, they're not up high like an airplane. They're flying low. You can see them, and they're large. They're huge. These are not hobby drones.
Must be a mothership. Yeah, this is like vintage Fox News.
And that is why when they started handing out uniforms and marching up and down the street, I volunteered my teenage son to join.
Right. Yeah,
we need to protect ourselves. I mean, really, you look at this, and it's just the precursors to fascism. It's just, you got to get people in a constant state of fear. And you know what? People put the fascism, I'm not even saying, well, that's what the Trump movement represents. That's what the United States represents. Yeah. They were doing this before Donald Trump ever got elected. They were doing this before anybody thought of him as a viable political candidate. Like, this is fascism, where you have the country in a constant state of fear and panic, so that they'll support any kind of military action. Look at what we're doing in Israel. We're literally committing a genocide. So are we not fascists? Are we not fascists? You got these idiots running around talking about how Kamala Harris didn't get support because she said people hate black women. Well, I guess you hate brown people if you were able to support the genocide of an entire nation full of them. It's just two different flavors of fascism. The people who say they're anti-fascist, they're emphatically fascist. They just like a different aesthetic attached to their fascism.
No, it is like two different flavors. I mean, that's pretty much my exact point. Like this show that we just had, that clip is like the bizarro Morning Joe. That's like Morning Joe for people who wake up and chug the rest of the warm can of Budweiser that they left on the nightstand the night before. They didn't finish. Oh, I got some left. They
I hope I didn't put out my cigarette in this one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all that is. But wow, that is something. That is something. So yeah, don't jump to conclusions, New Jersey. Stay cool. Keep your heads out there. Keep your heads out there, and don't shoot down Vito's drone. You might get in trouble for that.
Well,
Imagine
this gives you
to get shot down. Oh.
Yeah, this gives you a picture.
Hey, you play my kid here.
What the fuck? That's his fucking Christmas present.
It's fucking Christmas. We're testing it out. It's fucking Christmas present. What the fuck?
Yeah, this gives you an idea of what they're going to be doing under a Trump administration to get MAGA to support the same policies.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it seems like. It seems
we're all
like,
under threat.
Yeah.
The hordes are at our gates.
Yep.
We have to hold them back. Yeah, no. Iran, they're planning a big amphibious landing on the shore over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes. No, I mean,
they're coming to the
it's crazy.
Jersey Shore.
That was like vintage post 9/11 Fox News right there.
Yeah.
That's the Fox News I remember as a teenager watching, being like, how can anybody take this shit seriously? That's like what that was. Yeah.
That's what the Reagan years were.
Yep, I bet.
I was just on the phone with Mr. Gorbachev. It's this whole throwback to the 50s.
All right, Michael Castillo, thanks for the $50. Let's get our cowbell and our sound drop for Big Mike over there. Thank you for that, my friend. Michael says, good morning, gentlemen. I brought up the Dr. Drew topic to Jimmy and crew. He and Steph said they could make it happen. Yes, and it counts. Oh, thank you, Michael. I'm assuming you put in a super chat last night and brought that up, and because we said we thought he was too big a name for us, right? So all right, well we'll see. We'll be in touch.
Not too big for them.
Yeah, we'll see if we could. Yeah, well no, he's been on Jimmy's show before, and Jimmy's been on his.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so they have a contact. So that's how Michael. See, that's how Michael knew to reach out. See, Michael's setting things up. You can come work.
Blasphemy against you. What the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ? You loser.
Michael Castillo for another $10 says Republican from Ohio Josh Johnson is trying to pass a bill making it a felony planting the opposing team flag at the shoe. It's turf, by the way. The flag would just fall over. Yeah, at the shore, you mean? Yeah, that seems pretty insane. A felony.
It's Jersey Shore. That's where the real incident that inspired Jaws happened.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
JM,
it's a crazy story.
Sorry, hold on. There it is. Okay. JM, thanks for the $2 and the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Sparky says, aren't these mysterious drones actually federal government drones so people freak out so the Congress can pass draconian drone and connected legislation? Interesting theory, Sparky. Could be.
It's interesting.
Could be. Don't exactly know what they
Sparky's
are.
Sparky. I thought of you, man. I was telling Keaton about it. Candace Owens just did this big special about the USS Liberty.
Oh yeah,
that's to say, Sparky's always.
Sparky's always on that. Sparky's on that. Yeah, I got to watch that actually. I will check that out. Folks, we got 1,100 strong in the YouTube chat, 635 on Rumble. Thanks for waking up this morning. Smash that like button. We need to work the algorithm in the morning. Very important.
Work it.
So thank you very much for being here. Let's bring some more in. Hillary Hinton says, good morning, fellas. Just had a seed oil and aspartame smoothie to get my day rolling. I want 3 more regime changes by noon, people. Let's do this shit. There you go. Thank you. It's so heartwarming, says, because 67, thanks for the $10, to know that the USA are friends with Nazis in Ukraine and Al-Qaeda in Syria. What can go wrong? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same as always. Same as can always go wrong. Eric Rousseau, good. My order from Vega is on planet. Watch out, porch pirates. You'll get ray guns. There you go. They're your drones, Eric Rousseau. Beautiful. Don't stare at them UFOs too long. You'll start playing with your mashed potatoes. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. All right. Nocturnal Human says they're Mexican caravan drones. They're coming to take American drone jobs. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Appreciate that. All right, folks. So we're going to move a bit north for segment number 2. This is a New York story. This is a story from my neck of the woods. Kathy Hochul is announcing that to combat inflation, New York Governor Kathy Hochul is sending $300 to $500 checks to residents. Yes, that's right. Let's take a look at this plan.
Next month. In my budget next month. They will send you a check to buy your groceries for a month or whatever you want to spend it on. And if you're an individual earning up to $150,000 a year, it's $300. What does that look like?
See, what does that look like? Wow, looks like a check for $300.
Just make sure to put the white people in the back. I want the black people right in front of me.
Right.
Okay. Because we want to send a message.
How about that for individuals?
New York State government, not
Now,
racist anymore.
If you're filing jointly and you have a family, you need a little more, right?
I love
Families
this.
are expensive.
Families are expensive. Okay, I love this. I love this part of the plan here.
More, right? Families are expensive. How about this?
You get a car. You get a car.
$500.
$500. So $300 for an individual. Now, if you're a family, you need a little more. So we're going to give you $500. Okay, fucking idiot. $500, that's less for having a family. My wife and I are married filing jointly, so we'll get $500. If we were just unmarried domestic partners with children, we'd each get $300, which would equal $600. So they're actually giving families less than the individual. Like, if you want to sweeten the deal for families, say, hey, we're going to add $200 per child. Then you may have something. If you are an individual, we're giving you $300. If you're a family of 4, we're giving you $500. Only $200 more. You'd be better off. I'd be better off divorcing my wife and then taking the $300 each. We'd come out $100 richer and then remarrying afterwards. So that's the stupidity of that.
Plus, you get gifts.
Yes, plus you get new wedding gifts.
Cuisinart.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We can get a new coffee
bowls.
maker when we get remarried. That's true.
Yeah.
Spice rack. Yeah, update all our kitchenware. Yeah, it's looking like a good idea. Plus, we get the extra $100 cash. Yeah, you get more if you're a family.
How about this?
How about this?
$500. $500.
Show them what they've won.
For families earning less than $300,000, because I know life in New York City is expensive and your salaries may sound nice, but they don't go very far.
No, they really don't. So $500 should do it.
What a political
$500.
She's not at all. You watch this and you say, Kathy Hochul is not at all the Kamala Harris of New York State who just kind of fell into the job or anything. She's a real political talent.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's exactly what she is. She is the Kamala Harris of New York State. She, was given the job after Cuomo had to resign. She barely won re-election in a blue state in a blue wave year, 2022. Right. She only won by, I think, 4 or 5 points against Lee Zeldin, a guy who is the new EPA chief, so he's not going to challenge her. Looks like a guy named Mike Lawler, who's the new congressman, the new Republican congressman from the Hudson Valley, who actually unseated Sean Patrick Maloney in 2022, is looking to challenge her. So she is in political trouble here. No one is safe. New York Democrats fret over 2026 governor's race. A week after the presidential election, newly re-elected Representative Mike Lawler was already looking 2 years into the future in an ex-post about a business leaving Western New York. The only way we can change things for the better in our state is by changing governors, he wrote. We must make that happen in 2026. Lawler hasn't hidden the fact that he has ambitions for higher office. In May, he joked that he would be governor in a couple of years in a video recorded for the annual Legislative Correspondence Association show, a satirical performance by reporters in Albany that features rebuttals by leaders of both parties. Oh, I have to see if I can score some tickets to that next year. Didn't know such an event existed.
Nor I.
Conventional wisdom suggests that the party in power suffers during the midterms. Republicans will control all three branches of the federal government come January. New York Democrats have obviously denounced Donald Trump's victory, but historical evidence indicates his presidency should help them, making their 2026 candidates safer than under a Harris administration. But after a weak performance by Governor Kathy Hochul in 2022 and an overperformance by Trump across the state last week, some Democrats and their allies aren't too confident about conventional wisdom. Okay, I misspoke then. It was a red wave year in 2022. I was thinking of 2018, so I got that wrong. I apologize. No one is safe, said Kevin Elkins, political director of the New York City District Council of Carpenters. He said that he sees a pathway for Republicans to unseat Hochul in 2026. Manny Pastrich, president of the powerful 32BJ Union, that sounds like a union everybody should join. Yeah. Sounds even the most right-to-work motherfuckers get behind the 32BJ Union. What's the complaint about?
We've had some of our newer members asking about the holes between the bathroom stalls.
Yeah, right. Yes.
All I can say is you'll find out, guys. You'll find out.
That's union only.
Union only. Nobody else can stick
Nobody
their
else.
Johnson
Per
in
diem,
those
you
holes.
use the private bathrooms. Per diem, you use the porta potties. Yes, it's for 32BJ members only.
That was a special clause we negotiated back in 1933.
Yeah, right.
Still going. We have one girl who's actually been working those holes since then.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
We tell her, hey, retire, but she likes it. She likes it.
Hands off our glory holes. That's their signage when they do a picket. Manny Pastrich, president of the powerful 32BJ Union that has historically supported Democratic candidates for governor, offered a similar assessment. I think people should be nervous, yeah, he told City and State. Since the 2022 election, the governor's job approval and favorability have tanked, hitting record lows in poll after poll with minimal observable bounce back so far. Although Democrats maintained control of both the state Senate and the Assembly this year, the party did lose its one-seat supermajority in the state Senate, a fact that Republicans celebrated. And Trump picked up ground across the state, including in Latino communities in New York City that have historically been Democratic strongholds. Harris won the state by the smallest Democratic margin in decades, while Trump flipped parts of counties like Nassau that haven't supported a Republican since Ronald Reagan. The GOP have a very good shot to win the governor's office in 2026, said one Democratic consultant. Tuesday's results show that centrist Democrats and unaffiliated voters on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley are open to supporting a challenger to Governor Hochul, and those votes will be critical to any 2026 election. I agree with that assessment. I think Hochul is extremely vulnerable in 2026, yes. Even though that figures to be a year favoring the Democrats. She came very close to losing in 2022. Her favorability ratings are horrible, 34%, mid-30s, just absolutely miserable. Trump has made a lot of inroads with a lot of traditionally Democratic constituents. And as you can see, her big plan for, combating inflation, a $300 one-time check to individuals, $500 to families, that reads as desperation. That reads as she knows she's in trouble and she's trying to strengthen her political hands, not just ahead of the general election in 2026, but against challengers from within her own party. So Ritchie Torres, friend of the show, is considering a primary challenge and will most likely do it, if I had to bet. Go ahead. Do you have anything to add before we show this?
Ritchie Torres. Yeah, I am going to confront him and I'm going to ask him, how do you feel about people calling you Ritchie Torres? That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
okay, with this proviso, like, yeah, everything seems to be breaking in the Republicans' favor. New York State has a history of electing Republicans, governor and mayor in New York City.
They elect Republicans even sometimes when they're Democrats.
Yes, in the case of Eric Adams, our current mayor in New York. Obviously, there's the city that gave the nation Rudy Giuliani. You're welcome. Going all the way back to Nelson Rockefeller. I mean, this is the state from which you get the phrase Rockefeller Republicans. These kind of socially liberal, economically conservative Republicans. I have always said that New York is basically a pro-gay rights, pro-abortion rights Republican state.
Yeah.
If the Republicans changed their position on that, this would be a deep red state. It is a red state if you get out of New York City. Very, very much like other places in the country. You have this deep blue urban center that has a larger population, so it's able to overwhelm the rest of the state in elections. But most of the rest of the state is red. You know, you got Buffalo there. You got, but that's about it. However, I will say this. Nate Silver just dropped an article where he had an interesting graphic. For the first time in 80 years, people associate the Democrats more with cultural issues than with economic issues. And while that is an amorphous, nebulous thing, of course, it's having a huge impact on the Democrats' performance, that they have developed politics around culture that most people, not just white people, most people find loathsome and off-putting. However, they don't like the Republicans' cultural positions. They just haven't had it shoved in their faces much because they have not had control over the cultural conversation in that way for a long time.
Right.
With the ascendancy of Trump, they're going to very quickly be reminded of what the cultural positions of those fruitcakes actually are. So I don't know. And in terms of seeing the Republicans now and imparting to the Republicans the defense and championing of the working class, unless they are going to do a real 180 on their views on economics, which there is no indication that they're going to, with people like Vivek and Elon leading the way. People are likely by 2026 to also be reminded that these people are not your friends. They're not interested in protecting unions. They're not interested in boosting wages. They're not interested in eliminating homelessness and high rents. So by 2026, things might look better for Hochul, actually.
It's very possible. I mean, you really don't know what these next 2 years are going to bring, and what
it's
the
easy
prospects...
to project onto people that don't have power what you want to see.
Oh, sure. And that's why I wouldn't write her off. But I would also say she is going to face not necessarily a Republican challenger. She might get primaried with numbers that week. And this is another thing that she's trying to get out in front of right now.
Yeah, that's possible with her because she has no talent.
Right.
So she is incredibly weak. I'm just saying the wave, the momentum that the Republicans have could very well be
that could always shift.
Major reversal.
I mean, if past is prologue, it will shift, right? I mean, if history is a guide, it will shift. Hochul, the Democrat brand is not as strong in New York as it has been in years past, as we know. The last governor's race was very, very close. This election was much closer than a lot of people thought it was going to be in New York State. And, her favorability ratings are very low. And so when you add all those three things up, it does create opportunities for a Republican, but that might not be her biggest problem. So here's Ritchie Torres pretty much confirming that he's running. Now, he doesn't say that, but they never do say that until they actually come out and say it. But this is him leaving the door open, which tells you there's at least an 80% chance he plans on running in a Democratic primary against Kathy Hochul.
Critical of the governor because that you yourself want to run for governor and challenge Hochul. Is that something that you are seriously considering, a potential challenge against Governor Hochul?
I want to be clear. I did not submit the sworn affidavit.
right? It was Carlos Martinez.
I understand.
Who submitted
This is
the
some
sworn
other
affidavit,
bullshit
and I'm
that no one
simply
cares about.
responding to his sworn affidavit. To your question, look, I've declared that I'm running for re-election as a member of Congress, but I do reserve the right to change my mind. I will make a final decision as to the gubernatorial run in mid-2025, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, why wait? Why wait till 2025? If you're so critical of it now, you're not happy with the status quo, you're super critical of things happening on the city and state level, why not just say you want to do it now?
Why not give me the feather in my
Why
cap?
not? Look, I have no confidence in the leadership of Kathy Hochul. We need a new Democratic nominee. Whether I'm going to be the Democratic nominee remains to be seen, but one thing I do know for sure is that Kathy Hochul is setting up the Democratic Party to fail in November of 2026, and we need a new Democratic nominee.
Politico had an article looking at some of your past positions, right?
All right, so there you go. I mean, he's pretty much saying he's in. And this explains a lot of what I've been saying about Ritchie Torres since I've started talking about Ritchie Torres.
So you would think he hates Jose, but I think he loves him. Because that would be the biggest gift you could give to Jose Vega imaginable.
It would. But this is why I said all along, Ritchie Torres doesn't care about Israel. He doesn't even care about Jews. He doesn't care about anything. He cares about himself, and he knows that if he cozies up to these deep-pocketed Zionists in and around New York City, they are likely to fund a higher office campaign. And so if he runs, which it looks like he's going to, he is going to get a lot of support from those circles. It's going to be a very, very well-funded campaign. Now, is Ritchie Torres electable as governor of New York? Maybe. That really depends. That really depends on the Democrats' brand going into the season. I mean, he doesn't have the record of incumbency that Hochul has, which is, I would argue, a liability for her more than an asset. Can he compete statewide? That really becomes a straight red versus blue, up or down kind of thing. And I think his primary challenge could be very serious and very difficult for her to overcome because he's going to get a lot of money. Why do you think he cozies up to Israel so much? Because he knows that's where the money is in the party. And you're going into this season with a very weak incumbent who can potentially embarrass you, even in what figures to be a blue year. I think her record is so weak that becomes a real sweat job. And even if Hochul wins, you don't want to, as Democrats, be spending all of this energy and media time propping up a gubernatorial candidate in New York in what should be a blue wave year because it's zero sum. That's media you can't give your other candidates in swing states. Even if she wins by 2 points, you don't want to be sweating that out and burning all that energy in a New York race. So I think it's very possible he does run. And I think that explains why he is such a whore. Because he knows he wants to run for higher office, and he knows that if he takes certain stances on certain issues, that's big money when he goes to rise to the next level.
On the other side, although Hochul certainly has not in any way, shape, or form, to my knowledge, said one reasonable thing about Palestine or Israel.
Yeah, no, she's pretty bad.
She has not made that issue her brand the way Ritchie Torres has.
That's true.
So he is going to face something in New York State similar to what Harris faced nationwide, where you're going to have a lot of people on the left who are going to absolutely refuse to vote for him if he's the nominee.
Yeah, and you're going to get a lot of protests at campaign events as well. You can guarantee that. We can guarantee that. Jose can
we can personally guarantee it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what do we got here? Let's go to a quick ad read for our friend Andrew Richard Malcolm. He is one of the dissident sponsors here. He has a book called Die Coast by Cecilia. So an excerpt from Die Coast by Cecilia is read by Andrew Malcolm in the movie Heidi's Friend Diogenes. The reading is a story about Einstein's philosophical friendship with Hedwig, born 1916 to 1921, and it overlaps a videographic exploration of the COVID era, 2021 to 2023. In 1920, in Bad Nauheim, Einstein had a confrontation with Johannes Stark, later described by Max Born as the moment that the great danger of anti-Semitism to German science first appeared. These events are juxtaposed against COVID-era science as illuminated through the eyes of John Campbell, Russell Brand, Ursula Franklin, and Malcolm himself. You can find the excerpt at andrewrichardmalcolm.com, as well as the paperback and ebook. You can also order the book through your local bookstore. Check it out, dissidents, and much love to the community. Well, thank you for that. AndrewRichardMalcolm.com. That is the website you can go to support Andrew's work. We've had some of you guys reach out for sponsorship opportunities. If you have a small business or a cause or a passion project or a book or a podcast, or if you're a musician and you would like to partner with us to promote this on the show, go to dodissidents.com/sponsors and fill out the contact form. I've been in touch with some of you guys who had filled out the contact form, so I'm holding your spot in line for another couple days, and then we're going to move down the line. We did have a book slot just open up, so we're going to move down the line for the next book. We have some music projects in the works, so all good stuff. Thank you all very, very much for your support, and please support our sponsors. That helps everybody. Durindin. So basically, they can take a picture of you next to where a crime was committed, then you did it. I don't think they will be able to charge him in New York. Who?
I think he's talking about Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione.
Maybe. It's the Drones for Consent program. Thank you, Sparky. Yes. China sells drones, says Sparky, drone parts, drone jammers, and drone jammer parts to anyone and everyone. It's amusing to read the positive reviews from Ukrainian soldiers on Alibaba. Thank you, Sparky. Kit's Corner, thanks for the $2 Canadian. Mr. Gorbachev, take down that drone. Thank you. Yes, that's a good one. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Harris Faulkner freaked out when Newt Gingrich mentioned George Soros backing DA candidates throughout the country and forbid him from mentioning it, shutting down the interview. Soros fronts for CIA. Really? She didn't like that? I thought Fox News loves to talk about Soros. That's ratings gold for them.
Yeah,
she
that's
didn't
their
want
whole.
to go in there.
That's like half their channel.
That's half the channel. Exactly. Eric Rousseau, the aliens, went to Jersey Shore looking for some Snooki. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that.
I wonder how many times they mention Mary Miedelson on Fox.
Right. Yeah. I wonder
Did they
how
mention
many times.
her?
I would think not.
Probably not.
Nocturnal Human says, I wonder how much fake propaganda bullshit is currently in American school books, like the fake Chinese spy balloon story. The lies of today will be taught as facts tomorrow. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but I keep forgetting. Are we Gog or Magog? Asking for my BFF Ezekiel. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. There are now Syrians protesting against al-Julani, wanting him out. Yeah, I figured that would probably happen sooner than later. Thank you, Goo81. Appreciate that. Thanks for doing a story about Kathy Hochul, a truly hot woman. Thank you, Kenvin G. Glad we could start your morning off right.
She's from my possible future home base.
What's that?
She's from my possible future home base.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she's from Buffalo.
Okay, let me just upload this because I wanted to keep it out of there until we need it. It takes a lot of bandwidth. Okay, beautiful. All right, folks, so this next segment is an interview with our friend Omali Yeshitela, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. We recorded this yesterday, so we would have this for today's show. And so this is about 30 minutes. In fact, 30 minutes and 57 seconds exactly. So we got a half an hour here. The Uhuru sentencing is coming up on Monday, December 16th. And there is some good news to report in this segment with some reservations that Omali expresses. And so this was a great interview. We always enjoy talking to him. Just a fascinating guy and a great guy. And knock on wood.
Literally a living legend.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is not an exaggeration. Knock on wood. Signs are, I believe, more positive than negative going into Monday. So fingers crossed for that. So we're going to full screen this, and we will be back in these clothes in 30 minutes. No one has seen this yet. We did not live stream this to our patrons because it was a shorter one. So we didn't want to make a big event out of a 30-minute piece. But here it is for everybody for the first time to see our interview with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Everybody, we are thrilled to welcome back to the program once again for a third time the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, who's facing sentencing this Monday for a matter which we're going to learn more about right now from the man himself. Let's welcome back to the program Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Chairman, great to see you again.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you. Just wanted to express my appreciation to you and this platform for giving us access to people who otherwise we wouldn't be able to talk to. So thank you.
It's our pleasure.
It's our honor.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And we hope this is not the last time we talk to you for a while, but you do have sentencing coming up on Monday. Now, I want to get into some news here because this strikes me as good news here. Judge says no prison in Uhuru Russian conspiracy case. It was political speech. So this is an article in the Tampa Bay Times from Monday about a fourth defendant who I guess is separate from you guys in the sense that he's no longer part of the Uhuru movement. This says U.S. District Judge William Young sentenced an ex-member of the St. Petersburg activist group to probation, noting the case was rooted in free speech. A federal judge said Monday that he is not inclined to give prison time in the case against members of the St. Petersburg-based Uhuru movement who were convicted in September of conspiring to act as Russian agents. In a sentencing hearing Monday for Augustus C. Romaine, Jr., a former member of the black activist group and one of the 4 convicted defendants, U.S. District Judge William Young said their conduct ultimately amounted to the exercise of free speech. Everything they did here was political speech, Young said. I eminently disagree with all of it. These people spit on this flag that actually protects them. That's his opinion. The judge sentenced Romaine, 38, to 5 years probation, declining the 5-year prison sentence prosecutors had sought. He said he believed there had already been enough punishment in the case. The prosecutors did not comment on the judge's sentence, but looks of disappointment crossed their faces as Young explained his reasoning. Young nevertheless commended the prosecution team for their skill in handling a difficult case. He said he believed the trial produced a fair result. At the same time, the judge said the law requires wide breadth to be given to political speech, quote, or it gets chilled. We have to go a long way to make sure we're not punishing you for saying repulsive words, he told Romaine. So you and Penny Hess and Jesse Neville were on trial for acting as Russian agents. Now, you were found not guilty for that. However, you were convicted on a lesser charge of conspiracy. So that is a confusing verdict, which I understand you intend to appeal. Your sentencing is this Monday, the 16th. This article is about a sentencing for a fourth man who was given probation this past Monday. So in whichever order you'd like, would you like to speak to the verdict in the trial and your expectations for Monday's sentencing hearing, given this headline that we just read through?
Well, I think that there's a bit of the Tampa Bay Tribune being a bit disingenuous in the sense that it is a newspaper that's quite familiar with me, in particular, quite familiar with the Uhuru movement. It is based in a city. It was founded in a city that I was born in, that I grew up in, that I was involved in tremendous amounts of struggles for 50 years, more than 50 years. So they know who I am. They've always known who I am. And so to discover some validity in what the judge is now saying, it just seems a bit disingenuous. I worked for that newspaper as a younger man. I was the first so-called copy boy that worked there. I was the second person who worked as a proofreader for that newspaper. I was the first person who worked in the composing room for that newspaper. So they knew quite well who I am. And I think also what we're looking at is part of a profound contradiction in terms of speech, the sort of self-censorship that we've seen happening with most of the colonial media in this country, where the government would put me on trial for speech. And they said that it had to do with national security and threats to the security of the United States, but they won't say anything about it. Only time they'll say anything about it is they will put forth their opinions and treat that as news with the arrest itself. And now they learning something from the judge in terms of this characterization of speech, free speech, as it relates to the other case. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I think it's really important because I think it shows in part why we see the diminishing influence of the ruling class media in this country. And nothing made that more manifest than the just presidential election, where all of the bourgeois media came out, did everything they could to elect Harris to no avail. And what people relied on instead was mediums such as what we are dealing with right now. People had to go around the ruling class media. And so this is one of the reasons I really appreciate being able to be here, because people want more than what they can get from the Tampa Bay Times. In terms of the sentence given to Romaine, I do guess that there's some significance. Certainly, perhaps Romaine was able to recognize that, but even like a 5-year sentence for speech does seem to me to be a bit of a contradiction, to be able to recognize that it's free speech that we're looking at on the one hand, but 5 years probation. So maybe it says something about what would happen in our case. I don't know. You mentioned that Romaine is someone who was once a member of our organization some years ago. His politics are quite different now. He's a very bright man, and I thought he did a good job in the courtroom in putting forth defense for himself for a while. He acted as his own lawyer, and I thought he did a pretty good job doing that and raising questions that were really important. But I don't know what to make of his sentence with what we are approaching now, because even though they talked about it as being a conspiracy that involved Romaine and Russians and the Uhuru Three, the fact is, I think it's possible to see a clear distinction between the cases and the attitudes of the prosecution as it relates to the cases. We were on trial at the same time in the same courtroom, sitting close proximity to each other. But I think the Uhuru Three was an outstanding feature of the trial. So I don't know how to read that. I don't know if we can read that accurately or not.
Do you have the same judge? Is the same judge going to
It's the
preside
same
over their
judge.
sentencing?
It's the same judge.
Okay. Yeah, because that was my next question, because he seemed to at least pay some lip service to the idea of free speech in this ruling, yet he did sentence to 5 years probation. Is there a minimum sentence that goes with your conviction? Did he have to give them 5 years? Did he have to give either probation or jail time? Could he have been more lenient if he wanted to, or was this the minimum he could have granted?
I don't think it was the minimum. The thing about these charges and something that seemed to perplex the pre-sentence investigators for a minute is that there are no guidelines for this charge.
Okay,
and
so
that's
there's no
because it's unique, and that as I understand it, there's no one who has been charged under this law for purely for speech. There's never happened before. This is one of the things that made it relatively contradictory. So there's a lot of room that was given there. I don't know if the judge would have been permitted to allow Romaine to walk without any kind of sentence, or if there was a minimum sentence he could have achieved. I should know. I'm sure it's been talked about, but I just don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, because at first glance, looking at that and seeing no jail time, struck me as a good outcome. Even though in principle, I don't even understand what the crime is. Do you want to talk a little bit about the verdict? Because you were found not guilty of being Russian agents, yet you were found guilty of conspiring with Russia to sow discord, which, as I understand, meant you had contacts in Russia and you printed some of their opinions on your website. Seems to me that is practicing political speech. I don't understand how, in a country with a First Amendment, that is a crime. Now, the judge also cited that In Romaine's case, he didn't know that his activities required him to register as a foreign agent, which that was very confusing as well, because if you're found not guilty of being a foreign agent, why would you have to register as a foreign agent?
Right.
And so then why is this a conspiracy charge? To me, the verdict makes no sense. It could only be explained by confusion on the jury's part. Do you want to speak more to that? And I understand you're fighting the verdict. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think there was confusion on the part of the jury. In terms of the foundational charge of being agents of Russia. And we sat there in a courtroom and the prosecution had access to 2.5 million books in terms of its equivalency of 13 terabytes of stuff. I don't know anything about that, but that they had taken from us. So they had tremendous amount of that. And they had 14 witnesses, no people. 12 of them were FBI agents. 2 of them were people who they hired who claimed to be experts on Russia. And the wild thing is that with all of that, none of them could say that we did anything that broke the law. In fact, they were asked explicitly whether or not, because the overt acts we allegedly were involved in included coming out on the side of Russia in terms of the Ukraine issue, that we worked to take the United States to the United Nations for violating the crime of genocide, according to UN declarations, that we ran elections for reparations. These were a part of the overt acts that they said we were guilty of having committed. And all of these were acts initially said that Russia paid for, Russia was responsible for. And yet we are in court, and our lawyers asked the lead FBI investigator if in fact there was any Russian interference in the elections that where we were concerned. She had to say, no, there was none. The lawyer said, then, this came out of a Justice Department press release. Why, how does this happen? She said, well, I had nothing to do with it. But the lawyer said, you're the lead investigator. You were there. You knew what it said. You never said anything about it. I mean, so up and down the line, the lawyer said, well, is protesting opposing the U.S. war in Ukraine, is that something that should be considered a violation of the law or something to that effect? And she said, no. All of the stuff that was involved, they had to say there was no evidence of anything. There was no evidence of that. So it boils down to, and we didn't produce a single witness. What we had access to was the fact that the prosecution had used photos, had used videos. They had a presentation that I made in Moscow. And in every instance, when I'm in Moscow, I'm saying the reason I'm here is to let the world know the conditions of Black people in this country, and that we are looking for support from the world around this question. And these are at conferences, that non-governmental conferences, that organizational conferences that happen in Moscow. All of that was shown to them. They went back to the 1970s and showed how, with our newspaper, that we always and explicitly came out in opposition to genocide, explicitly said that we want reparations for African people. And they showed how, from the history of our newspaper, more than 50 years, we've opposed virtually every war that the United States government has been involved in, declaring that we don't believe the United States is capable of participating in a just war. And so, this is what we were able to do. So the jury, despite the fact they had dismissed the only African juror because she was late, I think, on the 5th day getting back, the jury disagreed that we work for Russia, and which meant that objectively they understood that we work for Black people because we don't work for Russia. And everything they they said that we have done, we did in the process of struggling for liberation of African people. So that was that was what should have been a dilemma. But what the prosecution, it has the last word in terms of the closing arguments. They misstated the law, which in and of itself was problematic because the law is a political law. It was created a political crime, even from its origin. It's an iteration of a law that was created in 1917, subsequent to the Russian Revolution, the whole anti-colonial movement that was characterized by Garvey around the world and other peoples, etc. So this is the law that we had to deal with. But even with that, they were not able to say that we committed any act. And so, and that left them with a conviction that had to be characterized as a thought crime. They said that we didn't, they convicted us of doing something that never happened. They convicted us of conspiring for something that never occurred. They said this never occurred, but they convicted us of conspiring for it. So that's the situation we're left with. And we think is extremely dangerous because part of what it does, it means that this is the thing that we were really concerned about from the very beginning, that it would make it illegal for African people to protest our treatment in the United States. I mean, this is the place you're talking about. And look at the time frame we're talking about. They said this happened sometime around 2014 up until 2022, but police were obviously killing Black people around the country. We end up ultimately with George Floyd, rebellions every place, etc. But we can't criticize the United States because to do so means that we in the employ of Russians. The United States is wonderful. Everybody knows that. We got Kamala Harris and Barack Hussein Obama, and so therefore we are peculiar and working for Russia. We have no agency of our own.
Now you mentioned the Trump election. Now I said throughout that if Trump actually assumed the presidency, I had to reevaluate what I believed about the deep state, or I had to reevaluate what I thought about Trump. Now, since the election, he's appointing a real wrecking crew of people who, in many ways, contradict the things that a lot of the MAGA supporters, and we have a lot of them in our audience, said they were for, including freedom of speech. He winds up appointing this AG, Pam Bondi, who says she wants to use the FBI to question pro-Palestine protesters, which of course she defines as anti-Semites. You got a guy nominated for the FBI who says we don't prioritize Israel enough. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to say that's a very dangerous combination, two people with those views. So do you think under the Trump administration, speech is going to be more protected, which a lot of people who supported Trump believed? Do you think it'll be less protected? Do you think it'll be about the same? Do you think this administration will be as likely to bring cases like this, more likely, or not at all?
I think it's a possibility of it achieving more protection, but it's a possibility. That's all, because the fact is that I hear the criticisms of Trump and what he has said, et cetera, but Trump has said things, but Biden and the Democrats have done things. I mean, Trump, the criticism of Trump, I mean, the same people who are telling us that Trump is going to make an assault on democratic rights and free speech, et cetera, it's the Democratic Party who did this thing to us. It was Biden who did this thing to us. It was Biden who wrote the ominous crime bill that gave it to Bill Clinton, who put 100,000 cops in the street. And that was a statement that he was making to white people in this country, that he was going to stop Black people. And, so that's what they did. And so Trump may do something similar, or he may even do worse. But the problem that we see is that colonialism is bad. And to have a liberal colonialism or left-wing colonialism or right-wing colonialism, colonialism is colonialism is colonialism. And what we mean is that what has happened to African people is that our right for self-determination has been taken from us, robbed from us, and sometimes they do it under a system that they call integration and segregation and Jim Crow and slavery. All of those things are just terms that speak to the fact that Africans do not have control of our own destiny. And so that's what we're about. That's what we've been fighting for. And that's why we haven't been so confused, we think, about whether it's Trump or Biden. We have tried to pay attention to it because there is some significance, possibly, because, as you know, it was Clinton who started this Russia stuff. It was Clinton who was the first election denier, who said that Trump didn't win the election, Russia won the election, Russia, 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 Russia. And it was that administration that did everything they could to make sure that Trump could not govern, and actually resulted in people going to jail and threatened with jail, et cetera, because of this connection to Trump and the Russia question. So that's where that came from. And, even, when we talk about what the possibilities are coming from Trump, we know the reality that has come from the Harris, the Biden, the Democratic Party, et cetera. That's real. And so we're not afraid of shadows. What we are concerned about what's happening in the real world. And when I'm facing 5 years in prison for talking, this is not from Trump. This is from Harris and Biden and that crew. So, we have, we're not hung up on that thing. We don't think that there's no alternative except the Democratic Party. Woe is us if the Democratic Party should lose power, if Trump should come to power. Our problem is woe is us. Doom is ahead, not because whoever is elected, if we don't have power over our own lives. And that's the fundamental question that we've been struggling for. And I think that's the reason I'm facing 5 years in prison right now and a $250,000 fine.
Now, if you look at how nonsensical the charges are, it seems like they bring charges like this really as a way of intimidating people out of speaking on certain subjects.
Yes.
And certainly the Democrats have been masters of that while hiding behind a wall of virtue signaling. Do you feel going forward you're going to be more hesitant to speak on certain issues after this experience? Do you think other people will be?
I'm hoping not. I'm hoping people will not be more hesitant. I'm hoping part of what we've found ourselves having to do is act as a bulwark against this assault on free speech. And it's not because we think that we are so much more heroic than anybody else, but the fact is that we remember that even in 1791, when the U.S. Congress did adopt the Bill of Rights and First Amendment, et cetera, we were property as Black people. We've always been in the vanguard of the fight for free speech. We've had to be in the vanguard because we had none. While there were others white people who may have presumed the right to speak and say what we want, we couldn't. We were property. And so that's the thing that thrust us on the front lines of this question, even in the 1950s. And I'm reminded how people, many people, especially liberals, Black and white, talk about Trump being a proto-fascist and this kind of thing. But even in the 1950s, during the McCarthy era, when many members of the Communist Party and what have you ran for cover, and for good reason. You had the execution of Julius and Julian and Rosa Luxemburg and what have you.
The Rosenbergs.
What did I say? Luxembourg? That's another. They were executed too, by the way. But we had a situation, and people have said that we should be fighting against fascism. But the thing is that what kept the society open was not a fight against fascism. It was Ella Baker. It was Fannie Lou Hamer. It was the civil rights movement. That's the thing that kept fought and won the democratic space. So even as they were shutting things down, the Black movement in this country was winning universal suffrage. It was on the front line of the struggle for democracy and democratic rights. And I think we had to do this. So it's not like, wow, these are heroic people. The fact is that, look, Emmett Till, I'm the same age as Emmett Till was when he was murdered for, they say, whistling at a white woman. You talk about free speech. So, and I lived as a young person, constant fear of the possibility of somebody snatching me up. My mother was concerned. This is what I grew up with, because this was happening all the time, especially young black men. And so we had to fight for free speech, and that's the way it is now. So it's not, I'm hoping that we are able to hold the line. And I'm hoping that we can set examples for people to fight. And you mentioned something that was said about Romaine's sentence, about this being a matter of free speech. But the only reason that has even come into the discussion is because people did not take plea deals and decided to fight, to go and fight about it. Otherwise, we'd something to just be in prison. It took them 9 months after an indictment, took them 9 months after the attack on us, the military assault on us, before there was even an indictment. And then even after that, they offered a $10 million bounty for anybody who would come and bring them information about the Ironov and the Uhuru movement, etc. They got nothing. For all of what they've done, after the investigation that went over 2 or 3 years, and with the 50-year history that they have at their command of our movement, they got not a single person from the movement, even people who used to be in the movement, who would come up and said that we work for Russians or foreign agents, we are foreign agents or anything. Got nobody. And that's the reality that I think speaks to who we are and what we've always been. And like I said, the Tampa Bay Times, they knew who we were, in fact, I lost my job at the Tampa Bay Times during the March on Washington because I was intent. It wasn't a March on Washington. It was after the Meredith. It was the Meredith March when James Meredith had decided he was going to walk across Mississippi and march against fear, and he was gunned down after making, just a few steps. And I said, the civil rights movement, people come in to Mississippi to finish this march. And I went to bosses at the Tampa Bay Times and said, I'm making this march. I want to leave of absence to go do that. And they told me that, no, you can't do that. That if you really want to help your people, you just stay here and work real hard and set an example for your people. And that didn't work out. And they said, if you go, you'll never be able to work here again. And so, they know who I am, and they engage in self-censorship, and that's what we're looking at. Think about this. I mean, I appreciate so much this platform and this discussion we're having, because it's not a platform that necessarily knows the details of anything that happened with us, but some things. Something about the history of this relationship. That Black people did not pop up on plantations under collard green leaves or something like that. We were brought here against our will at gunpoint, and the treatment of African people is notoriously horrible. I mean, just beastly, etc. You know that. The New York Times, they know that. How can they treat this case? How can they treat me? How can they treat the Uhuru 3 as these weird people who had to work for Russians in order to fight for freedom? We would be weird if we were not fighting for freedom. If we were Barack Hussein Obama, or if we were Kamala Harris, we would be really weird. And that's what they want to do. And they want to Obama-size us so that we become, acceptable forces. But we shall criticize our treatment, and we shall oppose unjust wars. We will do that. That's our responsibility. Look, we came out against this war, and now we've come to a place where U.S. weapons, long-range rockets are being used to fire into Russia that even threatens the possibility of nuclear conflagration, and yet we are the ones who are the problem. This is an extraordinary kind of situation, So anyway, it's Orwellian.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And, we are looking to sort of spruce up the show a little bit in the new year. So we're looking for a new slogan. I think "We Know Some Things" might be the new motto of the show. We know some things.
We know some things.
We know some things. So you guys are organizing an action on December 16th outside the courthouse. Is that correct?
Well, we're doing more than that. We're asking people to come because it's a political trial. And the people are the most critical factors in this kind of situation. And you raised earlier the question of whether or not people will have the courage to continue to fight given the attack that's being made on us. And I think that's going to be a demonstration of the willingness and the courage of the people, because there are going to be hundreds of people who come to that trial. That's on December 16th in Tampa, Florida. And then on December 15th, the Sunday, there's going to be a rally in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is right around, right across the bridge. And that was one of the places that was raided by the police, by the FBI as well. So we're asking people to come out, go to handsoffuhuru.org, get information about coming to the court in Tampa on December 16, get information about coming to the rally in St. Petersburg, Florida on December 15th, and we'll see you there because we believe the people are powerful. And so thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll be waiting with bated breath, and we'll be watching on Monday. Good luck to you, and we'll be in touch either way.
Thank you, comrades.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Russell just got to readmit himself to the room there. He exited. There you are. You're back. All right. So that was our interview with the great Omali Yeshitela. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Just to clear up some confusion in the chat, I saw a little bit of it. Not much, but people were asking, why not just acquit them if, rather than go probation instead of jail time. So this is the sentencing hearing. They've already been found guilty of conspiracy, not guilty of being Russian agents. So the first phase of this is already complete. So now it's a matter of sentencing. And it seems like from what we're hearing, the judge is leaning towards a more lenient sentence, which would avoid jail time, which, knock on wood, we hope that's true for the remaining Uhuru 3 as it was in the first case. Obviously, there should be no penalty imposed for free speech. They should have been found not guilty on both counts, and I suspect on appeal they might be, because as I just put there, they told the one guy, well, you didn't know that you had to register as a foreign agent, and so that's why we're going to be lenient with the sentence. But they were found not guilty of being foreign agents. So if you're going to say they're not guilty of being a foreign agent, then why would they have to register as a foreign agent? The whole thing is just crazy. It makes no sense. But right. Hopefully there's good news on Monday.
Yeah, the purpose of it is to chill speech.
Right.
That's the purpose. And as he pointed out, hey, this happened under the Biden administration. I did ask him that question, like, do you think it'll be better or worse under Trump? We don't know. And, God bless him. I'm sure if it's worse or the same, he'll speak out about it. That man is made of steel. He's been doing this since before I was born, much less you.
That's right. The real deal. Absolutely. All right, folks. Let's continue on. Got plenty more show, and then we will be switching to Rumble for the final two pieces. So, Russ, why don't we go ahead?
All right. So, friend of show, Alex Jones, has been in a bit of a legal tussle. Now, we covered this in the past, and we didn't really get into this angle of how loathsome the Onion is. So I want to correct that here. So Max did a very good kind of balanced tweet about this at the time. The Onion was reportedly on the verge of collapse when it was bought earlier this year by Jeff Lawson, a major Kamala donor and tech billionaire who hawks AI solutions, in quotes. This week, Lawson made headlines when he purchased Alex Jones's Infowars in a fire sale after Sandy Hook parents who obtained an eye-popping, seemingly unprecedented $1.5 billion judgment against Jones for the falsehoods he spread about them. To lead the Onion's parent company, which has subsumed Infowars, Lawson has appointed a CEO with no background in comedy or business. He is Ben Collins, a former, quote, disinformation and extremism reporter for NBC News, and one of the most recognizable faces of the censorship industrial complex that sprouted up during the Trump era to hound alt media figures like Jones. Collins has spent his short career pumping out a consistent stream of attacks on targets of the national security state and centrist political establishment, while spreading no shortage of misinformation along the way. Now, behind the brand of a once edgy satire mag, Collins promises, quote, "We're going to go after like every facet of alternative media that is trying to get you addicted to stupid stuff." His top targets, he says, will be podcasters and TikTok influencers. Now, we have this video, so I'm not going to read that through.
You're talking to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone.
Though Collins doesn't explain which stupid stuff or curious ideas he finds so objectionable, his agenda is fairly clear and deadly serious, and if you question it, you too are one of the conspiracists. So Max, absolutely right about all that. That's why we were speaking out against Alex Jones's deplatforming at the time when YouTube was pulling him off of YouTube. And we warned
Apple Podcasts, I mean, everywhere.
Yeah. We warned,
Twitter.
as many others did, it was going to start with Alex Jones and it was going to extend all of us. And you know what? You don't even have to podcast to experience this. If you've tried to make comments on videos in YouTube, God knows what they're flagging at this point. Like, you don't even have to tell somebody to go fornicate with their mother anymore. Like, they'll pull down comments for anything. Like, it's very difficult to have any kind of conversation. Like, really, the YouTube comment section is a case study in how chilling to the democratic requirement of open debate and speech these algorithms are when they're set to 11.
Right, because
on the
sometimes they'll just
censorship.
spike the comment, and sometimes what they'll do is they'll hold them for review, meaning that
Right.
the channel has to go through and review it. Now, we get literally thousands of these things a day. We can't go through
Right.
and read every single one. That's impossible. So
Of
that's a
course
way to
not.
censor it.
Of
Right.
course not.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so here's the video in question of the person who was going to be put in charge of Infowars.
Here we are. The Onion owns Infowars. Look, we're going to go after all of every facet of alternative media that is trying to get you addicted to stupid stuff. There is a whole world of podcasters and TikTok influencers who have some really curious ideas of the world. And I also think that we're learning right now that they're
Okay, now this is coming from people whose curious ideas of the world included supporting Kamala Harris, somebody who not a single person voted for, who was pushed into the nomination, who emphatically promised to continue funding and supporting a genocide. When these people say they're going to present rational news, what they mean is they're going to present establishment talking points. It sounds like basically what he wanted to do with Infowars is turn it into what Colbert's show is now, essentially, in its point of view.
followings are just as big, if not bigger, than traditional celebrities, and they've gone unmocked. They got a free pass to this point.
What?
Yeah, who's got a
Literally,
free pass? Yeah.
literally every single late night show in the lane that it sounds like he wanted to put Infowars into. Looks like he's not going to be able to. That's all they do. That's all they do is knock that whole ecosystem, all of its political figures, all of its media figures. That's literally all they do.
Right. And we don't think that that's fair.
Okay, all right. So that's the piece of work that was going to run Infowars, but it looks like no. Bankruptcy judge rejects Onion's bid for Infowars. The owners of the Onion say they are deeply disappointed in a judge's decision to reject their bid to buy Alex Jones's Infowar company. Late Tuesday, a federal bankruptcy judge said last month's auction of Jones's business and the Onion's bid, which had been selected as the winner, were flawed. After 2 days of testimony in Houston, Judge Christopher Lopez took issue with what he called the lack of transparency in the process, the uneven playing field, and the failure to maximize value for the people to whom Jones owes money. The decision is a significant and rare win for Jones, who has been embroiled in a long legal battle with relatives of the 26 children and educators killed at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut, who sued Jones for defamation in 2018. The family said Jones's repeated lies that the 2012 shooting never happened prompted his followers to mercilessly stalk and threaten them for years. After Jones refused to cooperate at trial, judges in Connecticut and Texas found him liable by default, and juries then awarded the families more than $1 billion in damages, which Jones is still appealing. He then declared bankruptcy, and his media company, Free Speech Systems, was ordered to be sold off to help pay at least a fraction of what he owes the families. The Connecticut families immediately expressed disappointment through a statement from their attorney, Chris Mattei. The decision is all the more poignant to the families as it comes just days before the anniversary of the shooting on December 14th. These families, who have already persevered through countless delays and roadblocks, remain resilient and determined as ever to hold Alex Jones and his corrupt businesses accountable for the harm he has caused, Mattei said. Ben Collins, CEO of The Onion's parent company, Global Tetrahedron, said he, quote, will continue to seek a resolution that helps the Sandy Hook families receive a positive outcome for the horror they endured, but lamented that everyone was sent back to the drawing board with no winner and no clear path forward for any bidder. In an emergency broadcast Tuesday night, Jones crowed about his victory and derided the auction as yet another case of corruption and collusion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we can celebrate the judge doing the right thing with the most ridiculous, fraudulent auction known in human history, he said, calling the Onion offer freaking cuckoo bird. Lopez rejected allegations from Jones's lawyer of a rigged process and collusion between the trustee and the Onion. The judge said he believes everyone acted in good faith, but that the trustee overseeing the sale should have scratched and clawed to get a higher offer for the families. I don't like second-guessing trustees, the judge said, but that is exactly what he did. Quote, it's clear that U.S. bankruptcy trustee Christopher Murray left a lot of money on the table, Lopez said, adding that he thought the process was doomed the moment Murray decided to cancel a live auction and call for sealed best and final offers instead. Okay, that's the smoking gun to me. It sounds like this trustee, we can't know, but it sounds like this trustee wanted to do this.
Right.
That he wanted to, that he wanted to be able to pick a troll instead of picking the best offer. Otherwise, why would you not just do an open bid?
Right. You do an open bid.
Because then you lose control of who wins it, right?
Right.
The losing bidder, a business connected to Jones called First United American Companies, offered $3.5 million for Infowars. The Onion, without Jones, what's it worth?
I mean, it's still. I mean, that's pretty measly.
I'm sure the assets, like that set that he has, it ain't worth no $3.5 million. So what are you buying? Like what the Onion wanted to do with it was just a massive troll, and the guy's a tech billionaire, so he can afford a $7 million troll.
You can afford a $20 million troll. If you're going to do it as a troll, you can afford to spend some money. Yeah.
Infowars has no value. It's just a troll. It just becomes, the value of it becomes Infowars is now under the Onion brand.
That's worth a little more than $3.5 million. That's a bit of a fucking chintzy offer.
Well, no, what they offered. Okay, so to go on, the Onion in partnership with the Connecticut families offered $1.75 million in cash, and they're not clear about what this is. Plus a novel sweetener, they said raised the bid's value to at least $7 million. So we're not clear what that sweetener is. The article doesn't say. I don't know if anybody knows. The families agreed to forego some of the money they're entitled to in order.
Supply of rhino pills.
Yeah.
Sweetener.
Listen, they've specially bred human lizard hybrids.
Right.
They amputate the penis. They grind it up into a powder. You'll stay hard forever.
Yeah.
Last for a week. The families agreed to forego some of the money they're entitled to in order to raise the amount that other creditors, including the Texas families, could collect. But the judge said both offers were too small. Lopez said he wants the trustee to sell Infowars in a way that will bring in more money, but how to do that, he said, is up to the trustee, and the judge wants to hear the plan in 30 days. The decision means Jones will be able to continue his show under the Infowars name to his Infowars audience and from his Infowars studio, at least for now. Had the Onion's bid been approved, Jones would have been kicked out of his studio and would have had to start rebuilding his audience and his brand from a backup studio. Now, to interject, that's not going to be a problem for him. He's just going to go to another studio. His audience is his audience. They're going to follow him to whatever domain he creates. The Onion's intent was to end Infowars' relentless barrage of disinformation and replace it with their brand of satire to skewer Jones's brand of conspiracy mongering. The site would have also promoted gun violence prevention through a collaboration with Everytown for Gun Safety, a nonprofit advocacy and research group. So yeah, it's just a massive troll. I don't think you would have gained a single audience member the Onion doesn't already have. It just would have been, we have this brand. Tuesday's hearing was particularly contentious, stretching on to nearly 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Attorneys for FUAC, that's an unfortunate acronym, and Jones aggressively pressed Murray, who was on the stand for more than 8 hours Tuesday, prompting multiple objections and badgering the witness and reminders from the judge to maintain decorum. Murray maintained that he was well within his authority to hold the kind of auction he thought would yield the highest value for creditors. Yeah, sure, that's why you did it. Yeah, open bidding doesn't create the highest bid. Secret ballot does. He said he analyzed the Onion multiple ways and that any way you sliced it, it was the higher and better deal for the creditors. Quote, under all of those different scenarios and permutations, the Onion's offer was just better than the other, Murray said, by a lot. Jones's conspiracy-laden podcasts go back some 25 years and have included claims that the U.S. government was behind the 9/11 attacks. That's just crazy talk. Who would think such a thing other than my co-host? He was kicked off multiple social media sites in recent years, but he got a big boost when Elon Musk reinstated his Twitter, now X account late last year. See, that's the thing. I mean, he's going to be fine as far as that goes. I mean, I assume they'll be able to attach his earnings forever, basically, to fulfill this suit. But he's not going to have a problem moving somewhere else and having an audience. Jones has been fighting to avoid losing his X account again, fearing it would be sold as part of his bankruptcy estate. Again, X showed up for Jones, arguing that the accounts belonging to X Corp cannot be considered property of the estate and cannot be transferred or sold without X's consent. The trustee and X announced on Monday they'd struck a deal that would allow Infowars buyer to acquire the content from Infowars X accounts, but not the accounts themselves. However, the judge's decision to reject the Onion deal now throws this issue, like everything else, back into question. Bruce Markell, a former U.S. bankruptcy judge and now Northwestern Law School professor, said the judge's decision was shocking and disappointing. Quote, it seems that the good was held hostage to the better, Markell said, and now the costs of dealing with an obstreperous debtor, Jones, just keep mounting. All right, so as we said the first time we covered it, and we covered it way back, yes, he did make these kinds of claims about the family. I identified it as libel, but I was thinking slander. It's clearly slander. We have slander laws. I think most of the people who feel that was no big deal probably don't have kids themselves. I think if, God forbid, that happened to your kid and some guy doing essentially performance art sicked his audience on you, whether advertently or inadvertently, through false accusations of really sick accusations of making up something like this, you'd be happy to see the problems that he's having today. That having been said, as civil libertarians, as freedom of speech advocates, clearly the punitive number is excessive, and there is an element of punishing Alex Jones for being Alex Jones rather than for what he said specifically and what the details of the case are. And this does have a chilling effect on speech. You don't have to agree with what Alex Jones says to recognize from the beginning that that's what this was always about. It was never really about helping the families, even though, he kind of did fuck around and find out. As far as his show goes, look, people always talk about, hey, Alex Jones was right about this, he was right about that. Well, if on every show you basically throw every single conspiracy theory in the world against the wall, some of them are going to stick. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who's been on the air probably 20 hours a week for how many decades now? I mean, yeah.
Why don't you list all the things he's wrong about?
Right.
You bring that up, people will be like, there are chimeras. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the original ruling on this, because we did a segment on this, was funny in an amoral sort of Coen Brothers universe kind of way, right?
Sure.
And so there was a certain joy in that. But this seems seems like the correct move. I think if Alex
Coen
Jones
Brothers
does have
and that
to,
everyone a freak in the whole story.
Right.
Like
Well,
that's
exactly,
very Coen.
yeah.
They're all freaks. Everyone's a freak in this story.
Yeah, exactly. Just this kind of bizarre, quirky, offbeat universe where no one is really trustworthy. Everybody is kind of a villain of sorts, right? Yeah. But yeah, if Alex Jones does have to open up his own shop, loses the Infowars brand, he could troll the Onion back by calling his outlet the Shallot. What do you think about that? The Shallot with Alex Jones.
Alex, if you're watching,
Come
you
on,
can have that
how
one
good
for
is
free.
That? Can have that one for free.
Next one, we're going to have to talk about prices.
Yes, exactly. That one's on the house. All right. We will go on to some more Super Chats and Rumble Rants and continue the program here. Michael Castillo, thanks for the $5, says the bill is reference to Ohio State losing to Michigan again, so Josh Johnson doesn't want an opposing team flag at Ohio State home stadium. Oh, so they lost again? I know the first one, there was that big fight. Okay, so good to know. Thank you, Michael. LTS, $500 or $300 checks. Is that monthly? EU citizen and friend laughing arse off next to me. I assume that's a one-time check. Pretty sure that's one time. Chant of the Muldaya, thanks for the $5.20. A Marxist sub once stapled the word incel to my forehead against my permission, so I permanently switched sides to MAGA. Cool story, where to lie. Thank you very much for that. What do we got? Sparky, Uhuru aren't rabble-rousers. They spent most of their time helping their local community in tangible ways. They're great Americans and a great example. Yes, they are. Indeed, I agree with that 100%. All right. Sorry, I meant to have this ready to go for now. There it is. All right, folks. So we're going to take one slight game break to thank our supporters for all of the great stuff that you allow us to do here on the channel. So if you would like to join the party, go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. For as little as $5 a month, you get lots of perks. You get call-in access to our post-show Q&As every Sunday night. You get your name up on the show credits here. You also get live stream access to our full-length pre-taped interviews, as well as bonus live streams and access to our special live events, which happen from time to time throughout the year. All that for just $5 a month. Your support is what keeps the show going. It is extremely helpful. We could not do this without the people on this screen here. So if you would like to sign up and become a member, please go to DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, you can click that bright red join button underneath the video player, and that takes you to our locals page where you could sign up for as little as $5 a month. We also stream to locals, so there's a little private locals chat that we have going for our live streams as well. So that's an added benefit of signing up with locals, since they have that live stream access as part of their platform integration. Cool Blue, thanks for the $5. In 2025, Trump and his Republicans will have to deliver policies which have people thinking and feeling their lives are improving. If not, 2026 midterms will end up being a D wave. Kathy Hochul would win with higher margin. I think that's right. I think the ball is in Trump's court. Absolutely.
That is why I'm saying it could be a very different landscape by then.
You just don't know.
Look at what these guys want to do, you know. I think people don't really understand that this is not a working class movement. This is not a movement that cares about the poor, that cares about rising rents. They're not even talking about addressing any of those things.
Look, it's honestly
they're
barely
talking about
a movement.
government. There are too many useless eaters working in the government.
Exactly.
That's their whole shtick. And we need more drones.
Yeah, more drones.
They're currently testing out in New Jersey.
It's barely even a movement, to be honest with you. And I know you say, well, how could you say that?
It's a vibe. It's a vibe. They said that about Kamala's thing. It's a vibe.
Well, yeah. Well, if you go to a Trump rally, you see all these people there, right? Nobody is organizing for any other cause but Trump. It's basically a big carnival show.
Sure.
Right. When you went to a Bernie rally, you'd have 30,000 people there, and there'd be people handing shit out, hands off Venezuela, anti-war coalition.
Yep.
You'd have people moving and shaking. You know, that's a movement. Now, it was a failed movement overall because the guy who ran it was a big PUSSY, but that was a movement. This is not. This is a carnival. This is a show. Right. This is a circus, literally almost a circus. You go there, you get your fucking Trump, Russian dolls and the bobbleheads and everything. That's what it is. There's no organizing for anything else that goes on there. So I hesitate to even call it a movement. It's a cult of personality, and these were very successful campaigns, 2 out of 3, for that reason, and for the reason that he's very lucky in the fact that he got to run against some very untalented, unappealing people. Right? I mean, that's one other secret to his success.
Cat was named Vagina.
Yeah, right. Exactly. John in Minnesota says, remember, Governor Cuomo enabled Republicans to control agenda of the state through his Independent Democratic Conference. Yes, the IDC, who voted with the Republicans. Yes, there was a caucus of Democrats that voted Republican, and that is what sort of kept a blue agenda in check, if you want to say that, although it's hard to say where one begins and the other ends.
Good point, Charles.
Yeah, good point, Charles. Yeah, there we go. All right, folks, got a couple more things to do here, and then we are switching over to Rumble for the final portion of the show. All right, so we know that the Syrian regime has fallen. Assad is out of power. Biden calls for Assad to be held accountable. That's right. Tough talk from Joe Biden. In the first full U.S. reaction to Assad's overthrow by an Islamist-led coalition of rebel factions, Biden also warned that Washington will remain vigilant against the emergence of terrorist groups, announcing that U.S. forces had just conducted fresh strikes against militants from the Islamic State organization. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice, Biden said from the White House. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria. Asked by reporters what should happen to the deposed president, who reportedly has fled to Moscow, Biden said Assad should be held accountable. So, obviously, having it both ways here. It's good that Assad's been overthrown. It's unfortunate that those overthrowing him are literal terrorists, the guys on watch lists and everything. It seems pretty obvious to me what they're trying to do is create a power vacuum, which then justifies further Israeli incursion into the area. But we'll get more into that a little bit later in this show, and more, and obviously in the days and weeks to come. But that line there, Assad should be held accountable. Reporters asked Matthew Miller at the State Department what he meant by that, and would you welcome some intervention on the part of the ICC? And this is a pretty hysterical interaction.
Yesterday, that the Assad regime, or Assad himself, should be held accountable. Will you support his application to stand in front of the ICC as a war criminal who committed crimes against humanity?
So we support the work of the ICC. I know that obviously we have disagreed with their hold on. Let me address it.
You support the work of the ICC until they do something about it.
So we have had a lot. Let me just answer the question.
Favorite man on earth, Matt Lee. There, want to play that again. That reaction from the room. Big laugh line, that one. We respect the ICC.
Support the work of the ICC. I know that obviously we have disagreed with their hold on. I'm gonna let me address it.
You support the work of the ICC until they do something about it.
So we have had a long. Let me just answer the question. You know what, Matt? Let me answer the question because I was addressing that before you interrupted me. We obviously have had a jurisdictional dispute with them as it relates to cases against Israel. That is a long-standing jurisdictional dispute. But that said,
it's a very deceptive way of saying that. It is not simply a jurisdictional dispute. You reject the merits of the warrant. You reject the merits of the claim that Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes. It's not just that Israel is not a state party to the Rome Statute. It's that you reject the claim outright. It's not a technicality. It's not a jurisdictional dispute. It is that too. But aside from that, you would defend Israel at the. Let's say we were state parties, we would defend them at the ICC.
Sure.
So that's a ridiculous way of saying it. I mean, that's a very, very sleazy way of saying it. And who does he think he's fooling? These are journalists. These aren't MSNBC chuds you're talking to. Matt Lee, you're not going to slip that by Matt Lee. Jurisdictional dispute. All right, keep going.
We have also made clear that we support broadly their work, and we have supported their work in other cases, despite our jurisdictional dispute when it comes to Israel. But that said, when it comes to Assad, I suspect that before you ever get to the ICC, the people of Syria are probably going to want him to return home and stand judgment for his crimes in Syria.
He's not going to return home. I mean, these are Russians under the Russians' protection.
I doubt that he's going to. I mean, if he's not going to return home from Russia, I doubt he's going to transfer himself to The Hague, leaving Russian protection
But
either.
My
point being, should he ever decide he's willing to face accountability, or should the Russians decide that they don't want to continue to harbor a war criminal, there may be a whole range of people in line to hold him accountable for his actions.
Okay.
Should the Russians decide they don't want to harbor a war criminal?
Uh-huh.
I mean, the balls on these people is just unbelievable.
Did we just have a war criminal address Congress to
rolled out
rapturous
literally a
applause,
red carpet for a war criminal?
standing ovations?
Yes. How many standing? It was a record for standing ovations. I don't think any Americans gotten that many standing ovations. It was I forget the numbers. It was like a 52-minute speech and it got like 55 standing ovations, something like that. It was a record.
Yeah.
No person has gotten more standing ovations in a congressional address than Benjamin Netanyahu. And it wasn't even that long a speech. Yeah.
Netanyahu beats Lincoln.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the Caesar Act, but do you think that the U.S. is undermining the trust of the international community in organizations like the ICC and ICJ by making an exception for Israel when trying to convince us that Assad and the like of Assad should be brought in front of the
So again, I think it takes too narrow a view of the ways in which he could be held accountable for his crimes by just focusing on the ICC. Because I do suspect that whatever comes out of the wake of the past 48 hours, you will see a demand by the Syrian people that he return to Syria and face justice for his crimes. And that would be the court of first jurisdiction before you even get to the ICC.
Okay,
so that's true. But when it comes to the overall question, I know we have a disagreement with other countries around the world, but this has been a long-standing, good faith disagreement about where the ICC has jurisdiction and where it does not, based on the fact that there is no recognized Palestinian state.
Okay, but that was the norm because it's what happened with Rwanda.
There you go. Based on the fact that there is no recognized Palestinian state.
Well, we don't recognize Palestinian. Yeah. Most of the rest of the world does.
Yep.
Most of the rest of the world recognizes a Palestinian state. We uniquely do not.
Right. So you see it all laying bare right there. And clowns twice. They laughed at him twice in that less than 3-minute exchange.
And that's an empire that's losing its authority. As hard as it is to imagine now. And yes, people outside the United States were always disproportionately more wise to the hypocrisy of the United States, but it was by no means a majority. People within the broad umbrella of the Western nations, the industrialized nations, the advanced nations, there was a time that most of them, just like Americans did, maybe not in as high numbers, but in majorities, accepted the American mythology of America as the leader of the free world. Right? When they did polls, America was always overwhelmingly positive among that class of countries, overwhelmingly positive. People had very positive attitudes. When you would go travel overseas, you go into the stores, they're playing the Grease soundtrack. You know, all of these things referencing this very idealized America of blue jeans and big cars. They were very fascinated by that. Now, no one accepts the idea that we are in any way this morally just nation, to the point that you have the White House spokesperson literally having the press corps laughing in his face. At that point, it is over. Something we always understood very well was how important propaganda is. That's why Hollywood has always been one of our greatest weapons. And when you lose that propaganda war, it has a snowball effect in terms of policy around the world.
Right, because that room full of journalists there, they're not alternative media podcasters. That's a Washington press corps there. And what Matthew Miller said there echoed pretty much word for word what the Washington Post editorial board wrote, which is that if the ICC goes after Israel, it's going to undermine their ability to go after the real war criminals, which are the Axis of Resistance war criminals, Putin, Bashar al-Assad. I don't think they mentioned him by name since this didn't blow up at the time conveniently yet, which we're going to get to in the next segment. But that is essentially the Washington consensus. And so when that room is laughing at him for saying that, you see how quickly and how severely that consensus has fallen apart. Because they're normally, they'd be the last persons to laugh in your face at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially because, I mean, just whatever your personal views are, it's unprofessional.
Right.
You know, express yourself in that way. The fact that they would do that, that's really the emperor's nakedness is just so exposed that everyone's just pointing it out now.
Exactly. Ham Hawk, thanks for the $5. Got a Facebook warning for a positive post on the Cracker Barrel. Honky, please. Thank you, Ham Hawk. Appreciate that. Favorite conspiracy theory ever? Bill Hicks faked his own death and became Alex Jones. Classic. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Hillary Hinton's on fire today. He's got a lot of good jokes this morning. Sparky, thanks for the $10. A big way YouTube influences the comment section of widely followed channels is to delete initial comments just after the video drops, which don't support the preferred establishment narrative. That does happen from time to time, and I'm actually surprised it hasn't happened more given recent events, but you're right about that, Sparky. It's pretty questionable, says Sparky, whether Alex Jones really pushed the issue of Sandy Hook being bogus. There was a ton of creative editing and agent provocateurs involved in the case against him. We've covered that pretty thoroughly, and like I've said,
we covered it at the time. We did the research. We found the clips.
Yeah, and like I said, he did not initiate that. It was more a function of audience capture than anything else. Because I remember the first time I saw him reference it was he was basically addressing people who were sending, fans basically, and that's the danger. I mean, we've gotten into this in the past, Sparky. I'm sure you've watched those episodes. I don't want to get into it thoroughly now, but when you cultivate an audience that wants something from you, if you don't have the fortitude to push back against them from time to time, then at a certain point you become a servant to your audience. You're not an independent voice anymore. You're a chef in a kitchen cooking up what the audience wants to eat, basically.
Which
and that's what he turned into over time. I followed his career more closely than most in this space because of my 9/11 curiosity, shall we say, which, go back many years. And so I followed him for a long time, and he wasn't always like that. It over time. That's what that turned into.
Yeah. As Keaton has pointed out, who, he has watched him a lot more than I have, but I've watched him enough to say, yes, he's very talented at doing this. I could say how hard it is to really compose your thoughts that way and to keep the verbiage going over an extended, and he's just
talent
by himself talking into a microphone. But I will say this, It's a lot easier if you don't feel a need to be accurate. Right? Like, what do you have to think about? If you're just going to go and spew for a couple of hours, it's still hard. You have to have a lot of
Bandwidth,
stuff
yeah.
in a lot of bandwidth to do it. But still, I mean, if we were just going to come on and be like, yeah, and you know what? I saw the cop the other day, and the cop turned into a fucking spider. And he started going around the park like that. I mean, it would be more fun, actually, to do that show. I got to say, sitting here, and, you know, I don't think you have to sit here to understand what I'm saying, but think about it. There's a lot of gold to be made, especially if you're talented and just spitting out any crazy shit, because there are people who want to hear that. They want to hear that. You know what? I think very often people want to hear that for the same reason that another kind of person doesn't want to think outside of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. When you think about the size of our problems and what it would take to really solve them, to really take on this system, these circumstances, it's easier to go down rabbit holes. It's easier to believe in very clearly defined explanations, because when you really contemplate the reality, yeah, there's a conspiracy. It's right out in the open. These guys meet at Davos every year, which is something people like Jones will talk about. Are there lizard people in the basements? I don't know. I mean, it's entertaining to speculate on. Is speculating on that really going to solve anything?
Right.
Is that how we're going to really resolve the fact that we're living through wealth inequality we haven't seen since ancient fucking Egypt?
Right. Well, here's a good example of a conspiracy right out in the open. This is our final YouTube segment. We will be going to Rumble after the conclusion of this segment. So if you want to get a head start, stewdissidents.com/Rumble. Put that in your URL browser. That takes you right to this current live stream. Thanks to Jake for the technology on that. Okay. All right. So final piece of the day. So Congressman Thomas Massie went on the Redacted show, and this came across the wire last night. Thomas Massie believes the U.S. government orchestrated, or at the very least facilitated, regime change in Syria. The timing is definitely not a mistake. So this is interesting. Let's take a look at this video.
Timing of this. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard was in Congress, and she and I collaborated on a lot of these efforts to stop our meddling, the U.S. meddling in Syria. And now she's been named as the head of DNI. Well, I think that was the signal to the deep state to go in for the kill and get this over with, because Trump and some of his nominees like Tulsi Gabbard are signaling that we are not going to carry on the policies of Obama and the deep state.
So that's why I've been thinking that we've been talking about that on our show, that it seemed the timing of all of this just seems incredibly fishy. So it is your assessment that this was really an effort here before Trump gets into office to go in and basically put in place this sort of deep state CIA plan in Syria. It's clear as day to you, it seems.
It's clear as day to me. And, whether it was led by the United States or whether we just encouraged it, definitely the timing is not a mistake. When you find a turtle on a fence post, it didn't get there by accident. So, for instance, some of the stronger powers that be, like Israel, they used their military forces to bomb the dozens of jets and helicopters in Syria. Basically, what these terrorists couldn't do, other people in the Middle East hurry up and did here in this last week to make sure that Assad didn't have the typical resources that a government would have to respond to these threats.
I mean, I think he's pretty much right on that. I might nitpick when he gets into the weeds. Is it the Tulsi appointment that did it, or is it just the Trump victory that did it? I mean, there have been mixed signals coming out of the Trump team, to put it mildly, about their commitment to overturning the deep state's apple cart. Now, mixed signals is probably too much of a chance.
She hasn't said a word about this.
Right, exactly. And so mixed signals may be too much of a chance for them to take. And I do agree, like Biden, I mean, pretty much made no secret of the fact that he's authorizing long-range missile strikes into Russia. because he's concerned about what's going to happen with this war effort after he leaves office. Democrats have been very open about that. The media has been very open about that, as we're going to see in the next piece. But the other piece about Israel.
That's also why they just transferred the $20 billion in frozen Russian assets to Ukraine, which without going through Congress, they can't even approve for military use. So you know what that's doing? That's paying their payrolls. That's paying their pensions. That's paying their health care. While people are freezing in tents in North Carolina, we send $20 billion in frozen Russian assets to Ukraine for their public services, which also, by the way, further undermines the dollar as the reserve currency, because doing something like that destroys the rationale for using it as a safe place to put your money.
Right. So they've been pretty open about that, right? That, hey, time is of the essence here because Trump's taking over, so we better try and lock in place our agenda as best we can to sort of Trump-proof it, if you will, for the next 4 years. The other part about that, in terms of Israel striking Syria, them doing what they can do in advance of a potential foreign policy shift, that's another very important point to make as well, and this is what explains fealty to Israel on our part. It's not because they're Jews, it's because they're Europeans. It's because they are Westerners in that part of the world. They are our aircraft carrier. That's what RFK said pretty openly, and that is what explains that. Okay, so in terms of the clock ticking, Time Magazine published this op-ed, which is a pretty astounding op-ed. We're not going to read the whole thing. But if you look at the title here, Syria could be the beginning of the end of Russia's imperial ambitions. And then you look at the byline, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, John Herbst, Robert Hormats, and Stephen Henriques. I'm going to read the bios from these people. I should have put this in the slideshow. I didn't think to do it until too late, so I have it on my phone here. This is from the piece. So Sonnenfeld, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, is the Crown Professor of Leadership Practice and President of the Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute. He's been an informal advisor to 5 U.S. presidents and assisted Jared Kushner in the 2019 Peace Through Prosperity Conference in Bahrain, which outlined the Abraham Accords and a global investment fund to lift the Palestinian and neighboring Arab state economies and fund a $5 billion transportation corridor to connect the West Bank and Gaza. Herbst is a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and Uzbekistan and a senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. He served for 31 years as a Foreign Service officer in the U.S. State Department. He worked to enhance U.S.-Ukrainian relations and helped ensure the conduct of a fair Ukrainian presidential election and prevent violence during the Ukrainian Revolution. Hormats, third byline, former U.S. Undersecretary of State, has been a senior official in the administration of 5 American presidents across political parties. He also served as vice chairman of Goldman Sachs International and vice chair of Kissinger Associates, and is now managing director at Tiedemann Advisors. He was a top-level envoy with Henry Kissinger during the shuttle diplomacy in the Mideast, with frequent negotiations with Syria's Assad regime. Henriques, a senior research fellow at the Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute and a former consultant to McKinsey & Company with expertise in the aerospace and defense industry. So the reason I read those biographies is you want a glimpse into the deep state mind. Here it is.
That's like the resume of a typical resident of hell.
Exactly. Like, look, you add up all these people. Okay, so this is the deep state. This is what this is. That is the kind of entrenched power that we're talking about as represented in the people who wrote this. So we're going to read the highlights of this. Vladimir Putin is running out of time with his crumbling economy and overstretched, faltering army trying to advance his ill-advised invasion of Ukraine, while attempting to suppress pro-democracy activists in several nations around his intended sphere of influence. Now, almost 3 years into his big invasion of Ukraine, that was supposed to be won in 3 days, he has been counting on the return of Donald Trump to the White House to undermine allied support for Ukraine. It need not happen this way. They even say right here, plain black ink. The next 50 days provide a historic opportunity for the assertion of national independence from Putin's control in several Eastern European lands. In 1946, the revered U.S. diplomat George Kennan prophetically warned of a domino theory of nations around Russia falling into a larger Soviet Union. Now we may be on the brink of seeing a reverse domino effect as we did in the 90s when nations broke away from Russia. As the Syrian rebel force Hayat Tahrir al-Sham swept through Aleppo and then Damascus in a matter of hours, toppling the 60-year reign of the al-Assad family dynasty, cheers and chants are echoing throughout the streets of the capital, celebrating the downfall of an authoritarian regime long supported by Russia and Iran. Both countries have used Syria as a strategic regional outpost in service of their commercial and military interests. However, the vast resources Russia and Iran once held have either been destroyed and committed to other failing conquests. In fact, it is the collapse of support from Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah that contributed to the surprise sweep of Syria, as the demoralized military under President Bashar al-Assad's strict control reportedly did nothing to resist rebel forces. What happens in Syria next is unclear, but the U.S. should certainly be working with Turkey to stabilize the situation while closely coordinating with all parties in the anti-Assad coalition. Some 700 miles to the north, the shouts of protesters and pops from their fireworks can be heard in the streets of Tbilisi, Georgia, where demonstrators continue their weeks-long call for an end to the pro-Russian ruling party in parliament and entry into the EU. The house of cards that Vladimir Putin has so carefully stacked over more than 2 decades is folding before our eyes. Not only are his satellite states rejecting Kremlin influence, but the Russian economy is crumbling, lurching towards severe stagflation. Russia is at a classic tipping point in its long, admirable history, that's nice of them to say, as Putin desperately hangs on in hope that Trump will wind down U.S. engagement and permit Russia to seize Ukraine in stages. Putin's fate may very well be in the hands of Trump, but so too are critical American interests, as well as those of its allies in Ukraine. Putin's hopes for Trump may well be disappointed. The president-elect has said Ukraine's survival is important to the U.S. He therefore does not want to broker a peace deal that only imposes conditions on the victim and allows the aggressor to come back for the rest of Ukraine. A U.S. exit imposing an appeasement plan would be the equivalent to Neville Chamberlain handing Hitler the Sudetenland, which of course only fueled that tyrant's territorial ambitions. The good news for Ukraine is that Trump likes to negotiate a favorable deal, and Russia is growing weaker by the day. In just a few days last week, the loose coalition of resistance fighters ended a cruel, dynastic reign in Syria, as Russia and Iran were too distracted to bring air cover to their ally, the despotic President Bashar al-Assad. If Syrians could seize this moment, perhaps so too can Eastern Europeans, as they themselves did in rapid succession during the 90s. So there you go. I mean, that may as well be a memo, right? I mean, that's basically an open letter, right, to Biden and to Trump, right? They're trying to shape foreign policy as best they can so that once the transition happens, Trump is compelled to just further himself down that road because, hey, you got to think of Ukraine as well. And I think the timing of this, as Massey said earlier, is not coincidental. This happened in the lame duck session. We've seen a lot of major escalation during this lame duck session. And that is the permanent state trying to put as much wind as Joe Biden's back as they can to keep going and to set things on a course to then encourage Donald Trump, hey, you can't pull back now.
Yeah. If we didn't have Hitler, we would need to invent him, right? The idea of comparing this military situation to Hitler in the 30s.
Well, of course, that's absurd.
It's just absurd. We did a piece the other day, the same one we got into the military bases. Russia is not even running a close third in military spending. It's lumped in with the 20 next countries who don't equal the United States military spending. The idea that if you come to a settlement with Russia, even a settlement where they take a substantial amount of Ukrainian territory, that's a prelude to Russia having the capability, set aside inclination, the military capability to invade the West. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And that is a good example of how, as our friend Nick often points out, Americans are the most propagandized people on earth. Really, not the North Koreans, not China, not Venezuela or any of the other bugaboos. It really is America, because it's in the pages of what? Newsweek?
That's Time.
Time, same thing.
Yeah.
So that's really for the PMC class to get their marching orders and their propaganda. That's how they get the PMCs shitting their pants about Vladimir Putin, as if that has any meaningful impact on their lives.
Yes. Yep. That's absolutely true. All right, we're going to take the rest of our super chats. Then we're going to switch over to Rumble for the final 2 segments of the day. Hey, healthcare segments are in fashion now. They're in vogue now. So we're going to do a healthcare segment over there, and then we're going to do a fun Boeing segment over there as well. So dudissidents.com/Rumble. Start heading over there now, please, so you're there when we start. There will be a 5-minute break starting in just a couple minutes, but first we'll knock out the rest of these super chats. Sparky says they'll never forgive Alex Jones for predicting 9/11. That was that is true, that he was on the air in July. Yeah, absolutely. Where is that? Okay, there it is. People project what they wish onto Trump. During the invasion, one Christian Syrian officer on Assad's side expressed hope that the Senate would approve Tulsi. By the way, Assad prematurely surrendered. Thank you, Sparky. Sparky's on a roll today. Says Russians, Arabs, and Iranians knew that Erdogan's going to Erdogan. They mainly blame Assad for not accepting economic help and military advice in the last couple of years from Russia, Iran, and China. Well, we openly admit our strategy in Ukraine was to bog Russia down so that we could do this. I mean, they say all this now. I mean, they're taking a victory lap. They're not shy about that. Sparky said, thanks to the other $10, his confidence boosted by being brought back to the Arab League. Assad thought he could turn Syria around by himself after Trump took office and maybe backed off. Syria's vulnerability was too known. I agree with that. Black Spock, thanks for the $3 super sticker. Appreciate that. Kuznetsky Bassane, Time Magazine equals example of domino effect of collapsing empire media. Yes, thank you, Kuznetsky. Appreciate that. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Knowing Syria's vulnerability, Hezbollah, Ansar Allah, and Iran have likely quit depending on it for a supply line and have long used other routes and logistical means. They still can and will hit Israel. Thank you, Sparky. All right, thanks, YouTubers. Head over there now, dudissidents.com/Rumble. We still got some more show to do on this Thursday morning before we bid you adieu. If you can't make it over there, we will see you Sunday night for my birthday show, December 15th. If you are watching in a place where free speech is not celebrated and Rumble is not available, we are on Twitch. So twitch.tv, and then search our channel name, and you'll find us there. So we're going to take a 5-minute intermission, folks, and then we will see you all on the Rumble side. Thanks for hanging out with us so far. We hope you'll join us for the end of the show. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Until then, be safe, be well.
Courage.
Please clap.